On today's show, we put together sort of a Spark Notes version of one of the most popular episodes. It's with publisher Lynda Sunshine West. Lynda grew up in a very volatile, abusive household, causing her to run away at a young age. Now, eventually she returned, but not without some scars. Like many of us, Lynda faced a lot of challenges on her road to success and figuring out what she wanted to do in life. In this episode, she shares her journey to becoming a best-selling author and a top publisher in the personal development space. This episode is an honest discussion of feelings, fears, people-pleasing, self-judgment, self-respect, and value. It is filled with plenty of life lessons, and it's one that I think many of you will relate to. Here's the condensed version of that interview. Welcome to Shift or Get Off the Pot, the podcast that helps you get out of your head and into action so you can make your dreams your reality. Let's get to it.
I had been in the corporate world for 36 years and I had 49 jobs. My last job, I was working for a judge in the Court of Appeals, and I was driving to work that day. There was something that snapped in me and said, why am I here? Why am I on this planet? All I do is push papers around for a judge. This is so ridiculous. I hate my life. I hate everything about this. Why is this planet here? And I just started asking the why questions, like you ask when you're 4 years old. And then when I got to work that day, my answer came to me, and it was through the form of a life coach. This woman posted in a Facebook group, I'm a life coach. I took some time off. I'm getting back into it, and I'm looking for 5 women who want to change their lives. I didn't know what a life coach was, but I knew I wanted to change my life.
Perfect.
So I ended up working with her, and that was for 5 months in 2014, and until like the end of November, when I quit my job working for that judge. And then I became an entrepreneur. I'm like, I'm going to become a millionaire next year because those are the promises I had heard.
Because that's what it is, right? I'm going to blog my way to millions. And there you go. Open up my laptop and it's going to become an ATM machine.
That's what I thought. Oh my gosh. How many of us think that? But, that hasn't happened yet. I say yet, I'm working on the millions. But I ended up December of 2014, I'm by myself, no longer have my life coach, and I'm not growing as fast, because I noticed how fast things were shifting and changing working with her. So January 1st of 2015, I woke up and I said to myself, I have so many fears. I got to break through a fear every day this year. I'm just going to do it. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to break through all these fears. And so how it looked is every morning when I woke up, the first thing I would do before I got out of bed is ask myself a simple question. And that was, what scares me? Every day, 365 days in a row. Then my commitment was that I would wait until the answer. And then I would have to break through that fear that day, no matter what it was. And my thing was, I said, no matter what it was, no matter what it is, no matter where it is, and no matter how much it cost, like I was going to have to figure all that out that day. So, and none of it was bungee jumping or jumping out of planes or eating bugs. It wasn't like fear factor. My fears were so deep rooted in one overarching fear, and that's the fear of judgment.
Oh, wow.
I didn't discover that until about 3 months into it, but some of the fears were, and some of these fears are going to sound ridiculous to some of you listening right now, but these were my fears. Talking to a stranger. I'm going to go to Starbucks today and I'm going to start a conversation with a stranger. I'm going to go to a restaurant and I'm going to say one in my party. I'm going to go to a movie theater by myself. I'm going to go shopping, clothes shopping by myself. These were fears of mine.
Listen, everybody wants to be liked. That's just human nature. We all want to be liked. But to go into a restaurant and say, I'm just going to be here by myself, you do get that feeling like, are people looking at me going, poor loser, she's got no friends?
That was my thought. And that was what I really thought. And then as I sat down and I was so nervous, I'm sitting at this, seat all by myself, and I looked around and nobody was looking at me at all. And I was like, oh my God, that fear over nothing, over nothing. And the thing about it is, like, there's a saying, fear is false evidence appearing real. And I came up with my own acronym for that. And that's faith erases anxious reactions. Because what I realized is that there's nothing false about my fears. They don't appear real. They are as real can be to me. So that false evidence appearing real is a bunch of BS, but faith erases anxious reactions, because fear is nothing more than an anxiety that's going on. That's a reaction of something. And then when our faith is strong, our fear is weak. So what this means is that when our fear is strong, our faith is weak.
Yep. So you can't have both. You have to, exactly. When you're trying to get rid of the fear, also when you're trying to get rid of something, there's a void, and you have to fill that void with something. And so I love that you turned it around and consider it to be faith, because that can absolutely move mountains, and it can completely change everything. But you're right. If it's something that has affected you so strongly, then it is real in that moment. And it is something you have to look at and say, okay, why is this bothering me? Why is this bothering me? But also, like you said, you went in there and you sat down, you looked around and nobody was looking at you, because everybody's busy with their own lives. And I think so often we forget that sorry, but people have their own things, and they're probably sitting there too, worried about their own stuff in their own minds.
Yeah. I'm going to share, like, one of the greatest things I learned during that year. I learned a lot of amazing things, but this one was the topper. That is that the fear of judgment is not really as much the fear of what they think of us. It's what we think of ourselves. And so one thing I realized is that when I was busy worrying about being judged, the reality is that I was judging myself. And not only that, the more fear I have over judgment of others, of what they think, means that I'm also judging others. And that was the big one for me, because I was extremely judgmental. I grew up in a volatile, abusive, alcoholic household, and my sister is one of the most judgmental people I know. And so I learned from her, and I carried that around with me. And I remember I attended this one event, and I walked in the door and I looked over, like, the other side of the room, and I saw this woman standing over there, and she was dressed impeccably. She looked amazing. There were people standing around talking to her. And I just had this strong sense, like, I need to walk over there to her and tell her how beautiful she is. That was my moment that I realized I was no longer judgmental, because in the past, I would have thought, who does she think she is? Like, why does she have to dress that? I mean, I would just judge, I was one of those, like, water cooler people,
Mean girls.
Exactly. I was a mean girl. And it's awful. Like, some of the things that I've said and done in my past, that I'm appalled that I was ever that way, admitting it out loud. But, I'm not that person anymore.
But it all comes from insecurities. I mean, when you go right to the heart of it, it does. It comes from insecurities, and it comes from really trying to protect ourselves. And, growing up in an alcoholic household, I'm very familiar with that. Mm-hmm. We do have to protect ourselves. We start getting this thick skin. We start to protect ourselves, and it comes out in different ways. And I think that either what I think is very common for people that grow up, just based on experience and programs that I've been involved in through growing up in an alcoholic household, is that you tend to push your feelings aside, and you create a shield around yourself, because you don't want to feel anything. You don't want to feel that pain, and you don't want to feel the embarrassment. Oh, if my friends see what's going on, or if they only knew that it's not as happy inside as it appears to be, or, all those different things. So we kind of hide behind that. And hence some of those insecurities start to pop up, which is why I think a lot of times we start to, in a sense, I wouldn't say lash out at others, but we start to, it is judging others or criticizing others, or we start to compare.
I created a lot of stress for myself, and it's been a journey. I just say that it's been a huge journey since I decided to break through those fears every day for a year. And I was age 51, and that's when my life really started, is at 51.
Yeah, but so you know what? That's great, because look at it's. Doesn't matter when you started, because it is kind of like a metamorphosis, and it is a just this I really feel like it's just your soul saying, look, it's time now. It's time to come alive. It's time to really step into your purpose and why you're here, because life is so much more than what you are doing right at this moment. And you know it, you feel it inside, but we keep just kind of burying it and sidestepping it. But I also love that you said that you made a decision to make some changes in your life, and nothing happens without decision. Decision is so powerful, because when you can make a decision, you can completely change the course of your life, the trajectory of your life. And I don't think enough people realize just how important it is to it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you can just make a decision, it starts to set you into action. And with that action comes clarity. And then you can always maybe course correct. But if you can just say, okay, look, I've had enough is enough. I'm going to decide to change. Then you start to open up yourself into what I call the field of possibilities, where everything can become possible, and all these things can start to come at you that can help support that growth or that change that you're looking for.
Yeah, decision is I actually have an acronym for that I'm going to share with you, for decide. And so the D in decide is to determine, determine what you want to do, where you want to go, who you want to be, determine all of that. And then the next one is to educate yourself. So the E is to educate yourself on what you need to do in order to effect that change. Like, in order to be what you want to do, whatever that is, you have to educate yourself to know what are the steps I need to take in order to get there. And then the next is to collaborate. You collaborate with others who can help you succeed. Just like you mentioned Zig Ziglar, if you can get everything you want in your life if you help enough other people get what they want. This is all about collaboration. The next is to imagine. Imagine yourself achieving that success that you desire. Where do you want to go? Who do you want to be? Imagine yourself there in that moment. And then the next one is to devote yourself to it. Devote yourself to that mission. Get yourself focused so that you can achieve those results that you want to achieve. And then the last one, the E, is to empower yourself with the tools that you need in order to effect that change. And, when making a decision is awesome, but if you're not taking the action, nothing is going to happen. One thing I like to say is you can hope, dream, pray for, desire, manifest anything you want in life. But if it's staring you in the face and you don't take action, nothing is going to happen.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. I think that's the hardest part, though, for many people. I know that it's very easy for me to look at all the other things and get distracted and not stay on target towards what I'm trying to achieve.
We all have, thousands of ideas every day. I can't remember the number. And they keep changing the numbers. So it's like 30,000 ideas a day, something like that. And it's impossible for us to implement them all. And so how you have an idea and you're like, oh my God, this is an awesome idea. I'm so excited about it. I'm going to do it. And then you write it down. You're like, okay, I'm going to get to that right away. And then the next day comes and the next day comes. And then you start maybe like, I had that idea and I want to do it. And it's sitting on your brain. It's still sitting there because you're really inspired by it. So what I started doing is I created what I call an idea box. And so I'll just jot my idea down, and I really just a bullet point. I don't need to write everything down because it's top of mind. So I'll write that idea down and I'll put it in the box, and that gets it off of my brain. And at least it's sitting there for me for a later time. And then what I'll do is when I start to kind of slow down on things, I'll pull out my idea box and I'll look through the ideas and see which of these ideas is an idea that I can implement now. Instead of me worrying about it or thinking about it, what can I implement now? Oftentimes, here's what happens. I'm like, what was I thinking? That's most of the time my ideas. And so I started realizing that I don't have to implement everything right today. But here was the brilliant thing somebody said to me one day. She said, Lynda, you don't have to keep all your ideas. You can gift them to other people. If you have a really good idea, you can give it away to somebody else. Here's the thing, though. The caveat is that once you gift it, you cannot worry about the end result. If they never do anything with it, you have to be okay with that.
Speaking of an idea, you finally decided, okay, I've been in books, I've written a book, so maybe it's time to take this a little bit further. And that's when you started Action Takers Publishing, right?
that's when I started publishing my own. So I said, my next natural state of progression is to follow in my mentor's footsteps. He was doing collaboration books. I'm going to do a collaboration book. And so I had met some really cool people through this journey, and I reached out to them, the founder of UGG Boots, the inventor of the credit card magnetic strip, and the creator of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I met them all during this journey, and I reached out and I said, I'm thinking of putting together a book called Momentum. Will you join me? And all three of them said yes.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
What was interesting in that, Kim, is that I could have reached out to other people to be in the book, but I reached out to these three people that I knew that if they said yes, I had to do it.
Right.
They were holding me accountable.
No turning back. Yeah.
Right. Because without them knowing it, they were holding me accountable. And so they all said yes. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So ended up putting together that book. I had so much fun, and I lost a lot of money because I paid a ghostwriter to write the entire book. And so he made more money than I did. But I learned so many things. And it's like, what did I learn? What did I learn? What did I learn? And I said, I'm going to do it again. So I did it with two more books. Those two books hit #1 international bestseller status in under 3 hours. And I looked at that and I said, oh my God, this is awesome. I'm having a blast doing this. I love what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. I'm damn good at it. I can make money at it. This is my ikigai. And I was like, I'm a book publisher. And you know what I did is at that time, I had been running a women's mastermind called GSD Mastermind for 6 years. I called all of our members and I said, this Monday is our last session. I am now a book publisher. And I literally severed it.
Wow.
I reimbursed them any money I owed them, but I severed that tie. And this was a very important piece for me, because if I didn't sever that tie, I would have been holding onto that anchor that would have been keeping me back from progressing forward. The day I decided to sever that, and I'm a book publisher, talk about focus, everything came clear as clear could be.
Mm-hmm.
That prior to that, I had been an entrepreneur for 6.5 years. In 6.5 years, I didn't make more than $30,000 in 1 year. And actually my first year, I looked the other day, it was $2,000. That's how much money I made as an entrepreneur my first year, the year that I was supposed to become a millionaire.
Because you were so scattered, doing too many different things?
There was no focus. There's a saying, focus is follow one course until successful.
Mm-hmm.
I was not following one course, and I was all over the place, but I had to do that in order to learn all the things that I learned along the journey, and that I could say, I'm owning my success or I'm owning my failures. I'm not a failure, but I had a lot of failures along the way that taught me a lot of lessons. And so I share with you this because what happened that day that I made that I severed those ties from my past and I started moving forward. The next year I made $120,000. So I 4x'd my previous 6 years. And then the next year, $180,000.
There you go.
My energy was different, right? Yeah, the power of focus. Do you want me to share with you how I raised my prices from 1,000 to 15,000? Okay.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Now's a great time to talk about that, because what happened was I was not accustomed to making sales. I was in the corporate world. I never had to make a sale in my life. And so I didn't know what that was like. Becoming an entrepreneur was the hardest part, was asking for money, or making the offer or asking for the sale or whatever, always be closing, blah, blah, all these different sayings that we hear. And no matter what anybody said to me, my energy was wrong. Mm-hmm. I needed to learn how to raise my energy related to money, related to talking about money. So I had this epiphany one day. I was like, I'm not selling anything. Nothing is selling at all. And this is as a book publisher. Mm-hmm. Nothing is selling at all. So I'm not going to drop my prices, because what's the first thing a lot of people do when they're not making sales? They discount, they drop their prices. I said, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to raise my prices until somebody buys. And what that did is that created a whole different energy related to money for me. My energy vibration was raising. I started at, I think it was 1,500. And then I went from 1,500 to 2,000. And like, so as I would get on calls with people, if they didn't buy, the next person was going to be charged more. And so I went to 2,500, 5,000, 7,500, 10,000, 12,500, 15,000, 4 people bought.
Oh, fantastic. That's fantastic. It's an energy shift. You're absolutely right, because you're right. A lot of times people just go, it's not working, I'm just going to slash the prices, but it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with if the value's there. And clearly you'd already demonstrated the value's there. So that is a caveat. I just want to put that out there, that it's not just like, oh, I'm just going to willy-nilly throw these prices out there.
Right.
If the value is there, and if you truly know that the value's there, people are getting it, then you have to look at that and go, okay, why would I do that? Why would I just shut down my pricing or, lower it? Because that's just devaluing me as well, and the services that I offer. And I think a lot of times too that, when people pay for something, I do think there is great truth to the statement that when people pay, they pay attention, because it causes it creates that focus.
Yeah, definitely. I know a lot of times people will say, how much should I charge for this or that? And I always ask them, how much do you want to charge? Like, what's your feeling? Because if you're not feeling it, people recognize it. And that was one thing that I had to really come to grips with, is that the reason people weren't buying is because I didn't believe in the value of it myself. Like, I know of the value, but I didn't believe it. That's the thing. Like, I know the value, but I didn't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's making sure that you can align those two. That's so important, because a lot of times I think that's just something that is, in a sense, the curse of being an entrepreneur, because you look around at so many other people and you go, oh, they're charging this. How come they're 25,000 for a coaching package? They're 2,500. And you go, oh, and then you start comparing yourself to other people. But I also think that the beauty of being an entrepreneur is that it is the fastest way to truly get to know yourself and to start to understand, okay, what do you think about yourself? What are your limiting beliefs? Where might you have to make some adjustments and take a look at those things? Because your business, I'm a firm believer, personal development and business development go hand in hand. And your business is only going to grow to the extent that you grow. Big time.
Oh my gosh. I was kind of chuckling as you were saying that, because thinking of all the limiting beliefs I've, worked through and the ones I still have to come, it's been a journey, that's for sure. One thing I do want to share, make sure that this is shared, is because, breaking through a fear every day for a year, I learned a lot that year. I learned a lot about fear. And, as I stated, my number one overarching fear was the fear of judgment. People is they have the fear of success. It's not really the fear of success. It's the fear of judgment, because what will they think of me when I'm successful? Will I lose my family? All these things. Fear of failure. What will they think of me when I fail? Right. There's a saying that more people are scared of speaking on stage than they are of dying. And that's not true. The truth is that more people are scared of the judgment that they might receive while they're speaking on stage than they are of dying. And so it goes back to that fear of judgment. So one thing I learned is that every time I broke through those fears, about 99.9% of them, the result on the other side of the fear was a good thing. I either learned something about myself, I met somebody I wouldn't have met, I was proud of myself, a door was open that I didn't even know was closed. And the results were amazing 99.9% of the time. So if you think about it, when you break through fear, if the results are going to be amazing, why are you depriving yourself of that amazingness? So I wrote a book recently. It's called Do It Because You're Scared. Do it because you're scared. You're like, oh, this is fear. I must do this because I'm scared, because you don't know what's going to happen on the other side. Everything I'm doing today, every single thing I'm doing today, with the exception of my husband, because I've been married for 36 years, is a result of me breaking through those fears every day for a year. You don't have to break through them every day. Just break through them as they come.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. If you like what you hear, please consider leaving a rating and hit that subscribe button. And if you know someone who would benefit from this episode, please share it with them. I'll be back again next week with another episode of Shift or Get Off the Pot.